3 spine-chilling true jogging tales, unexplained encounters that expose sinister secrets. The streets of Maplewood, a peaceful suburb, had always felt safe until Sarah Thompson started jogging at dusk. 3 nights ago, a chilling experience had rattled her to the core. While running along the familiar path, she felt a presence lurking just beyond the whispering trees. She turned her head, convinced it was just her imagination, but the pit of her stomach told her otherwise. A dark figure, just out of sight, seemed to melt into the shadows, leaving her breathless and wide-eyed. Heart racing, she quickened her pace, but instead of escaping it, the gnawing sense of wrongness latched onto her heels. Initially, she dismissed the feeling. After all, Maplewood was known for its friendly neighbors and serene atmosphere. Yet, the whispers were growing louder. Every night the voices echoed between the branches, soft and sinister. "You shouldn't be here," they seemed to chant. Shadows flickered at the edge of her vision, but when she looked, there was nothing, just the rustle of leaves. Still, an unsettling chill washed over her. It must be exhaustion from working long shifts at the hospital, she thought, just anxiety creeping in. It was then she met Tom, the retired cop who seemed to appear out of nowhere, just as the sun dipped below the horizon. His smile was warm, his demeanor reassuring. They talked about mundane things, the weather, the good schools in the area. But each conversation left her feeling heavier, unease creeping in with every mention of his past. He smiled too often, as if he meant to mask something lurking beneath. She'd heard rumors of corruption from his days on the force, and doubt nibbled at her gut. Was this man who he claimed to be? As Sarah continued her nightly runs, stories emerged of missing joggers. One evening, they lingered in her mind like a horror film of familiar faces slowly fading from existence. Panic crept into her thoughts, tightening like a vice. What if the friendly neighborhood she had come to trust was hiding dark secrets? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Night after night, she laced up her sneakers, desperate to fight the rising fear. But each run always turned into an escalating nightmare. Shadows lengthened as darkness fell, holding her gaze captive. Then one evening, hesitation seized her. A figure stood at the end of the street, its form looming in the waning twilight. Chills raced down her spine. Could it be a trick of the light? She shook her head, forcing herself to believe it was nothing. Yet panic took hold as unexplainable rustling filled the air behind her. Someone was watching her, stalking her. Heart pounding, Sarah sprinted down the path, sensing the distance between safety and danger narrowing. Each footfall echoed like a desperate plea. Who would help her? Tom? Or was he part of this web of secrets, or worse, an accomplice? The whispers returned, screeching in her ears, contorting reality into a nightmare. All around, the fabric of her world teetered, looming chaos threatening to consume her. She stole a glance back, her breath hitching, only to see that the figure was closer than ever. They were closing in. Would she become the next name on the lips of Maplewood? As darkness swallowed her whole, dread clashed with her instinct to fight. Would the secrets of Maplewood claim her, just as they had so many before? The pounding of Sarah's heart grew deafening as she pushed her legs faster, the cool night air biting at her skin. The streetlights flickered, casting eerie shadows that twisted and danced like wraiths in the darkness. She risked another glance back, but all she could see was the darkness swallowing the path, no trace of the figure. Was it a mirage, or had she simply imagined it? The doubt clung to her, heavy as the impending night. Go. Just go, she whispered to herself, an urgent mantra pushing her forward. The whispers followed, insistent and cruel. Shadows merged into one, pulling her into their embrace of despair. She had to get home, had to escape this nightmare, but the maze-like streets felt unfamiliar, each turn leading her deeper into an unsettling pit of fear. As she rounded a corner, her breath caught. A flash of movement darted through the trees beside the path. She halted, panic clawing at her throat. The later it got, the more unreal things became. The soothing lilt of suburbia had twisted into a twisted symphony of fear. Suddenly, a flash of steel glinted in the periphery just for a split second before disappearing into the bushes. Damn it, she cursed under her breath, heart racing. Her mind flashed to the stories of missing joggers, of those who had taken the same routes she now ran alone. Would she join their ranks? She couldn't shake the feeling that she was not racing against time, but someone or something darker. Splashing through puddles, she sprinted all out, adrenaline fueling her. A phantom touch grazed her shoulder, and she nearly shrieked, looking back frantically. But nothing. No one. Just the echo of her own ragged breaths and the relentless whispering in the trees. Her legs burned, but she pushed despite the ache, feeling the insistent tug of something sinister at her back. It was there, the tenuous thread of certainty that Tom might know something, a flicker of insight into the hidden darkness of Maplewood. Panic turned to resolve, and she finally turned on her heel, heading toward his house, desperation thrumming in her veins. She had to confront him. Questions burned inside her. Was he really the friendly neighbor he portrayed, or was he the embodiment of all the shadows creeping closer? Just as she reached his house, the hairs on her arms prickled. The front door stood ajar, creaking softly with an unnatural rhythm, as if inviting her in. Should she? The whispers swirled in her mind, everything she had heard, the strange coincidences connecting him to the missing joggers, his too-perfect smile. Suddenly, she felt a pit in her stomach, a deep primal instinct screaming for her to run. But curiosity chained her feet to the ground. What if she found answers? What if she found herself? A rustling came from within the house, followed by a menacing chuckle. As dread settled into her bones, the darkness of the night wrapped around her like a shroud. Then a voice echoed from the shadows, deep and gravelly, "You shouldn't have come here, Sarah." The world tilted and spun as true terror took hold. She was trapped between the whispers of the trees and the sinister murmur coming from inside. With a sudden decision, she stepped forward, a step toward that foreboding door, the unknown, and the danger that lay ahead. What awaited her on the other side? Would she uncover secrets meant to stay hidden, or would she become lost in Maplewood forever? The air crackled with tension, anticipation hanging heavily as she crossed the threshold. The door creaked wider as she pushed it, revealing a dimly lit entryway. Shadows loomed, stretching out like a warning. Sarah hesitated, every instinct urging her to flee. The chuckle echoed again, sending ice through her veins, a sound both mocking and familiar. "Come on in, Sarah," the voice beckoned. "I've been waiting for you." The darkness held no warmth. It felt alive, pulsing, ready to close in on her. She stepped cautiously inside, the wooden floorboards creaking beneath her weight. The air was thick, stagnant, and heavy with a scent she couldn't place, something sickly sweet, like rotten fruit. "Tom," she called, her voice breaking the oppressive silence. No answer came. Just silence, then a rustle from the shadows ahead. The kitchen door hung slightly open, swinging gently as if disturbed by something no longer there. She took another step, closer to the door, curiosity battling terror. What was happening here? Where was Tom? The stories flooded her thoughts again, the whispers of those who vanished, each tale stretching across the fabric of Maplewood. She gripped her phone tightly, the cold plastic a stark contrast to her clammy hands. As if sensing her unease, the lights flickered and dimmed further, the shadows thickening. "You have questions," Tom's voice taunted from the darkness. "But can you handle the answers?" A chill washed over her. "What do you mean?" she managed to say, her throat tight. Suddenly, a burst of laughter erupted, raw and phantasmagorical. Some people think it's just a game running through the night, playing hide-and-seek with ghosts. But every game has rules. Before she could grasp the implication, a shadow loomed in the doorway, tall and dark. It moved closer, an indistinct outline becoming clearer, revealing Tom's face, a wide, unsettling smile stretching across his features. His eyes gleamed like polished stones, lifeless and hollow. In Maplewood, we attract the lost and the curious. But you, my dear, you're something special. So vibrant, so alive, his voice whispered, fabricating an atmosphere thick with dread. She stumbled back, her heart racing, panic rising like bile in her throat. What do you want from me? Oh, Sarah. You are not the first to ask that. He stepped further into the light, revealing more than just his face behind him. A collection of photographs adorned the wall, missing posters, faces twisted in fear and disbelief, their lived-in smiles now ominously frozen in time. Join us, he said, gesturing to the wall, a twisted invitation that made her skin crawl. We have a way of making sure your story won't fade. Like those who came before, you can be part of Maplewood's lore. She turned to run, panic igniting every fiber of her being. A cold hand gripped her wrist, pulling her back, anchoring her to the darkness. Run if you must, he hissed, but the night has a way of revealing the truth, and I assure you, it will find you either way. Forcing her body to move, she twisted away and bolted back through the door, each footfall echoing against the wooden floors, desperation catapulting her into the night. But as she stumbled outside, the world around her felt altered, the streetlights now dimmer, the shadows deeper, stretching hands reaching out toward her. Help! She screamed into the vacant streets, knowing full well the answers she sought would only lead her deeper into this nightmare. The whispers began again, rising around her, a cacophony of dread that twisted her thoughts. Was she running toward safety or straight into the heart of Maplewood's darkness? As she raced for the nearest streetlight, she felt a presence just behind her again, waiting, watching. Would she be the next story on that wall, or could she uncover the truth before it was too late? And then the whispers transformed into laughter, beckoning her back as the shadows closed in. What was real? What was a trick of the night? In that moment, everything felt like a game she couldn't afford to lose. With every ounce of strength, Sarah pushed forward, not knowing who or what was chasing her, but one thing hung in the air, the undeniable truth that Maplewood had its secrets, and they were hungry for more. The next turn held an unexpected choice. Would she turn toward safety or delve deeper into the madness? She sprinted past the flickering streetlight, its dim glow casting a weak halo in the expanding darkness. Each of her gasping breaths felt like a battle against invisible claws that reached out from the night. The laughter echoed through the streets, haunting and relentless, intensifying her dread. Where are you? She whispered, voice trembling. She could hear it, a low, slithering sound that accompanied the chuckles, drawing closer. It felt like a game, one she wished she never joined. For every stride forward, her mind screamed that something was gaining on her, trailing in the shadows, waiting for her to falter. Her heart drummed in her chest as she turned down a side alley, desperate for any refuge. The walls were tall and oppressive, the air thick with an unspeakable heaviness. She glanced back, breaths now sharp and shallow. The alley was empty, but a creeping dread knotted in her stomach, refusing to let go. Think, Sarah. You need to stay focused, she told herself, panic flooding her thoughts. She had to make it to the main road, maybe there she could find help or at least someone who could understand what was happening. But the alley only seemed to deepen, a winding path that felt alive, twisting as if it were testing her resolve. The laughter morphed into whispers again, names spoke softly, chilling her bones. Sarah, Sarah, it was taunting her, like a spell luring her deeper into a web woven from dread and despair. Suddenly, she caught sight of a figure at the alley's end, a dark outline disguised among the shadows. Was that someone standing there, or just her mind playing tricks? Help! But her voice caught in her throat, paralyzed by fear. The figure stepped forward, emerging from the darkness, and Sarah felt a sick twist in her gut. It wasn't Tom. The face was covered in a mask, just like those on the missing posters. A bitter smile stretched across its lips, eyes gleaming with a hunger that was unmistakably sinister. "Join us," it whispered, voice dripping with malice. Before she could turn, shadows erupted around her, swirling and throbbing with life, closing in. The whispers spiked her terror. "You can't escape. You belong to Maplewood now." In a surge of survival instinct, Sarah pushed through the constricting dark, crashing into a hard surface. She mustered her strength and broke for the end of the alley, where a beam of light promised salvation. But it flickered out, leaving her engulfed in oppressive darkness once again. With dread clawing at her mind, she felt a grip on her shoulder. A freezing chill coursed through her veins. She whirled around to confront the presence, and time halted. Tom stood there, unmasked, grinning maniacally, eyes now blazing with a fire that was both inviting and terrifying. "Didn't you learn, Sarah? There's no escape. You're one of us now." She gasped, her heart racing as she desperately searched for a way out. Around her, shadows twisted, beckoning her to surrender, to join the lost souls that thrived in Maplewood's grasp. "No. I'm not one of you. Let me go." She screamed, but the laughter echoed, filling her ears with madness. The walls seemed to close in. With a final burst of will, she pushed against him and darted back, crashing through the shadows, desperate to find the light again. Her senses screamed there was still hope, or was it all a cruel illusion? She didn't know how long she could run. The darkness was alive, it enveloped her like a predator stalking its prey. Just when she thought she might break free, she stumbled into a clearing. Her heart sank at the sight. A bonfire crackled in the center, surrounded by figures draped in cloaks. They swayed like marionettes on strings wielded by the darkness itself. This was a gathering, a macabre ceremony. "Welcome, Sarah," Tom's voice rang out. "The night is young, and we have so many games left to play." As the crowd turned toward her, their faces concealed in shadows, she felt hopelessness wash over her. In that moment, an incomprehensible dread filled the pit of her stomach. What had she walked into? The night had claimed her. But just beyond the encroaching darkness, a glimmer caught her eye, a flicker of truth, a chance for revelation. Could there be a way out? And then, as the figures began their ominous chant, Sarah felt a chilling determination rise within. She would fight. She would find a way to break the cycle. But first, she'd need to uncover the deepest secrets hidden in the heart of Maplewood. What awaited her next as the chanting grew louder? Would she find the answers buried in the ashes of the past, or lose herself forever in the service of the shadows? The air crackled with anticipation, a palpable energy that seeped from the fire like an intoxicating fog. Sarah stood at the edge of the clearing, heart pounding fiercely against her ribcage. The flames danced wildly, illuminating the masked faces that surrounded her, figures with expressions locked behind those plastic visages. Shadows shifted, weaving patterns on the ground, casting long, twisted silhouettes that threatened to swallow her whole. The chanting swelled, words unrecognizable yet somehow familiar, clawing at her sanity. "Join us, become one with the night," they echoed like a warning, threading fear into her veins. It felt like a heartbeat, ominous and unyielding, wrapping around her mind. "Please," she nearly sobbed, voice cracking under the weight of despair. "I don't want this." But the crowd merely shifted, a collective breath held, hungry for her compliance. She could feel their gazes penetrating her skin, as if they knew every secret she harbored, every doubt she clung to. Tom stepped closer, his face now strangely serene. "It's beautiful here, isn't it?" His voice dripped with an otherworldly charm, like a siren song luring her into tranquil death. "You don't need to be afraid. Embrace it. Maplewood is home now." Home. The word jangled in her mind, jarring against her reality. This twisted version of family offered nothing but despair, cunning games that played on the souls of the unwitting. She shook her head, trying to silence the tempest of thoughts swirling inside her. She needed a plan, she needed to wake from this nightmare. Discreetly, she surveyed the perimeter, scanning for any chance of escape amidst the thrumming rhythm of their chant. Behind the gathering, the shadows bore a hint of movement, dark figures lurking, watching, perhaps waiting for her to decide her fate. As the chant reached a fever pitch, she took a step back, feeling the compulsion to retreat but stopped short by a tall figure blocking her path. It loomed larger than the others, masked and cloak-draped, the embodiment of fear itself. "You cannot run, Sarah," it whispered, voice smooth yet chilling. "You're already trapped in the tapestry of Maplewood. Fight all you want, the strings are already woven." Fury ignited within her. She would not succumb without a fight. Channeling her terror into determination, Sarah yelled into the night, "I am not yours. I'm not a part of this." The chanting faltered, the crowd momentarily stunned. The flickering flames cast eerie shadows across their masked faces, confusion, anger, fear. This was her moment. Sarah bolted. The darkness closed in around her as she barreled toward the other side of the clearing, where the trees stood like silent sentinels. Heart racing, her feet pounded against the ground, every muscle in her body screaming for release. Behind her, the crowd stirred, their murmurs rising once more, a blend of disbelief and rage. "Stop her!" Someone shouted, the command punctuating the night air. She dashed into the thicket, branches scratching at her skin, tearing at her clothes. The thicket was a maze of dark whispers. Panic shot through her as she twisted and turned, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, tightening the grip of dread in her chest. Just when she thought she could break free, a sudden grip clamped around her arm, yanking her back. She turned, a flash of terror in her eyes. It was Tom, his expression twisted between regret and something darker. "Why are you running?" he asked, almost pleadingly. "You won't find anything in the woods, just death." His words pierced her resolve. Was he right? Could she even hope to escape? But beyond him, slivers of moonlight broke through the canopy, illuminating a narrow path obscured by shadows. If she could just, with a burst of adrenaline, Sarah wrenched her arm free, stumbled backward, and dashed toward the light. The deeper she ran into the woods, the wilder the sounds around her grew, mad laughter, the rustle of cloaks, the heartbeat of something monstrous lurking just out of sight. Could she outrun the darkness? Could there be a way to unravel the secrets hidden in Maplewood, or would they claim her as one of their own? The uncertainty gnawed at her insides as she pressed on, not daring to look back. The haunting chorus began anew, echoing through the trees, promising chaos and despair, and as the haunting calls rose behind her, Sarah realized one frightening truth: every step she took led her deeper into a labyrinth where the light was dimming, and time was running out. Would she find the way to set herself free, or would she surrender to the wrath of the shadows that awaited? Branches clawed at Sarah's face as she raced down the narrow path, heart pounding like a war drum. She could hear their chant behind her, a maddening mix of fury and desperation. With each hurried step, the shadows seemed to warp and stretch, reaching out as if to pull her back into their midst. She fought against the rising panic, focusing on the beam of moonlight that flickered ahead, a beacon promising escape. She stumbled, catching herself on a tree trunk, fingers digging into the rough bark. Breathe. Speed was her ally. She pushed off the tree, lungs burning as she pressed forward, each heartbeat echoing against the cold, damp air. The laughter and whispers swelled and swirled, taunting her, filling her with a dread deeper than the night itself. Suddenly, she broke into a small clearing. The moon poured down, illuminating a stone altar adorned with strange symbols, ancient and foreboding. Hollowed eyes stared back at her from the inscriptions, as if the stones were alive, watching. She skidded to a stop, a chilling realization dawning. This place wasn't just a refuge, it was a trap. Panic surged through her as she turned, ready to retreat, but it was too late. The masked figures emerged from the shadows, a chilling sight under the moonlight, their faces fixed in a grotesque glee. They had anticipated her flight. Surrounding her, they moved like a tide, a merciless wave closing in. "Join us, Sarah!" they chorused, their voices rising in unison, sharper than a knife's edge. "Embrace the truth of Maplewood." Desperation escalated. "Get away from me!" she screamed, feeling her back pressed against the altar. The figures moved closer, weaving out of the shadows, their eyes glistening with something sinister. Tom was among them, his mask glinting. "You can't escape what you are. We're all connected here. You've always been part of it." His words struck her like poison. "I will never be part of this. I'd rather die." With a burst of fury, Sarah lunged toward the altar, grabbing a jagged stone shard that lay nearby. She brandished it like a lifeline. The crowd hesitated, a momentary flicker of uncertainty crossing their masked faces. "Stay back," she warned, voice trembling but fierce. The moment stretched, hanging thick in the night. Sarah's eyes darted among them, searching for a crack in their wall of terror. Then, without warning, the figure at the forefront, towering and cloaked, began to chant again, louder, more insistent. The cold, familiar rhythm twisted around her, suffocating. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet trembled. Dark roots and vines erupted from the earth, crawling across the ground like serpents, inching closer, ready to ensnare her. Panic coursed through her. They were calling the forest, summoning it to bind her. Sarah's breath hitched, she had to break the cycle. With a cry, she hurled the stone into the mass of figures and dashed left. The few who hesitated in shock allowed her a fleeting advantage. She plunged back into the woods, the chaos of their surprise granting her precious moments. But as she ran, she could feel it, a creeping dread coiling around her heart. The woods began to change, closing in tight. Whispers wrapped around her like chains, drowning out her thoughts. She stumbled into a dense thicket, struggling to break free. The path was gone. Her fingers brushed against the bark, rough and alive. A hollow voice filled the air, echoing her deepest fears, "You're not alone, Sarah. They will come for you. The night will claim you." With tears burning her eyes, she pushed through thick branches. A feeling of hopelessness crept up on her as she considered her options. Was there truly no escape? And then she didn't just run toward the darkness, she ran toward the truth. Yet as she turned another corner, heavy breaths filled her ears. They were closer now, shadows morphing behind her, relentless in their pursuit. There was something more out there, lurking in the dark, a presence she hadn't expected. Just when it seemed an end might be near, a flash of light flickered in the distance. Could it be a way out, or something far more sinister waiting in the shadows? As she raced toward it, her heart hammered loud enough to drown out the sound of the crowd. With each pulse, she wondered, was she chasing freedom, or merely running into the jaws of fate? Sarah barreled through the underbrush, the frantic pounding of her heart drowning out the whispers chasing her. The flicker of light ahead shimmered like a cruel joke, an illusion promising safety in a world that felt increasingly hostile. She strained her eyes, desperate to distinguish its source. As she approached, the trees thinned, revealing a small, dilapidated cabin, its windows dark and foreboding. The light she saw pulsed from deep within the structure, flickering like a heartbeat in sync with her own rising panic. Was this her salvation or another trap set by the figures that prowled like wolves in the dark? "Sarah!" A voice called out from behind a voice she recognized. It was Tom, his tone mixed with urgency and something she couldn't place. "Come back. You need to listen." She halted, torn between the promise of shelter and the dread whispering all around her. "What do you want?" Her voice trembled, layered with fear and defiance. "We can help you. You don't understand," he pleaded, shadows dancing on his masked face as he stepped closer. The others lingered behind him, silent, their eyes boring into her with a venomous fervor. "Help me?" she scoffed, feeling the weight of their twisted bond. "You're the last people I'd trust." The flickering light inside the cabin beckoned, casting strange patterns on the ground. She felt its pull, a magnetic force that spoke to her instincts. What if it held the answers? What if the truth lay within, waiting for her like a coiled serpent? But even as hope stirred within her, fear clamped down hard. What if it was a lie? Suddenly, without warning, a loud crash erupted from the direction of the cabin. Startled, Sarah jumped, glancing back to see the thick front door swing open. Dark shapes shimmered inside, the shadows writhing as if they were alive, eager for her presence. "Go! Go now!" Tom shouted, his voice urgent, almost pleading. "They'll take you if you don't hurry." Each heartbeat echoed in her ears as Sarah dialed into her instincts, urging her feet to move. She bolted for the cabin, sprinting toward the light that danced in chaotic patterns, flickering like hope amidst despair. But as soon as she crossed the threshold, a chill clawed at her senses. The air inside was stale, thick with an earthy smell that reminded her of decay. The light emanated from an old lantern hanging from the ceiling, illuminating the interior, a room cluttered with tattered books, remnants of rituals and artifacts that stirred the essence of the eerie ritual that had overtaken Maplewood. The cabin felt suffocating. She scanned the room, taking it all in, dark symbols scratched on the walls, photographs of twisted, grinning faces, and trinkets imbued with an unfathomable darkness. "Sarah!" Tom's voice echoed from just outside, turning her toward the door. "You're not safe there. It's a trap, too." In that moment, the remaining masks appeared at the windows, peering in with sinister delight, their voices flowing together as an unholy chant. The walls trembled as if the very cabin recoiled from their presence, and cold shifted through the air. She could feel their eyes, the weight of their hunger, desperate to draw her back into the fold. Panic seized her heart. She was too close to the truth, yet too far from safety. "Let me in." Tom's voice was urgent, vibrating with the force of desperation. "You can't reason with them." But the others pressed against the glass, their voices growing louder, more insistent. "Join us, Sarah. You belong to us." Shivering, she turned from the door, feeling more trapped than ever. The air thickened, and as she tried to make sense of her choices, a shock of pain coursed through her. The sturdy walls seemed to bend, morphing and closing in around her, a snare tightening its grip. And then, she caught sight of something in the corner, something dark and glimmering, a knife resting atop a stained wooden table. It lay there, inviting and ominous at once. Her mind raced. If she didn't act, she could lose everything. But as she reached for the knife, a deafening roar erupted outside, drowning out Tom's calls and her racing thoughts. The masks had broken into a frenzy, chanting louder than before. Shadows swirled as the night deepened, coiling around the cabin like a serpent ready to strike. In that fraught moment, Sarah realized she had to decide. Face the monsters outside that yearned for her, or plunge deeper into the secrets this cabin held, risking everything for the truth. What would she choose? As her fingers closed around the cold, steel handle, she felt the weight of destiny hanging in the balance. Would this blade bring her salvation or damnation? The door creaked ominously as a figure pushed through the shadows, and Sarah's heart sank. Was it her ally or her end? With terror glistening in her eyes, she turned to face what awaited her, knowing that whatever confronted her next would change everything. The figure stepped forward, a silhouette cut from the depths of night. For a moment, all Sarah could discern were the wild shadows shifting behind it, flickering in the lantern's feeble light. Was it Tom? Had he defied the others to come to her aid? "Sarah," the figure rasped, its voice thin and strained like a brittle twig. "It's me, it's Tom." Relief coiled through her, but it was quickly overshadowed by dread. The expression on his face was one she had never seen before, twisted by fear, maybe anger, or something even more disconcerting. Get away from the door. He shouted suddenly, panic tightening his words. It's coming. She barely had time to grasp what he meant when the ground shuddered beneath her feet, the walls groaning as if the cabin itself were alive. The door slammed against the frame, rattling in its hinges. The shadows outside surged forward, their chants rising to a fevered pitch. The air thickened, almost suffocating her as she backed away from the door, gripping the knife like a lifeline. "What's happening?" she gasped, her voice barely a whisper above the overwhelming chaos. "They want you," Tom shouted, rushing inside. His eyes darted wildly as if searching for somewhere to hide. The others hovered just outside, their masked faces peering in, their hands clawing at the darkened windows, desperate to reclaim their prize. The urge to flee clashed with the strange sense of duty tugging at her. She did not belong to them. Not now. Not ever. "Tom, what did you mean? What do they want?" Before he could respond, an otherworldly howl echoed through the trees, rising above even the maddening chant. Something was charging at them, something that made her skin crawl. "They'll take you if you don't trust me," Tom cried, his voice cracking. "I swear I saw it happen to others." At that moment, the lantern flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows that twisted like snakes against the cabin's walls. And like a spell shattered, she could see them now, tall figures, vaguely human but unmistakably wrong, their limbs too long and their skin a ghastly pale. Gathering the courage she scarcely felt, Sarah drew the knife closer to her chest. "We have to get out of here. Now." "No!" Tom shouted, his eyes wide with terror. "You cannot leave. They'll follow you. You have to join us." "Join you?" she spat, hatred flooding her voice. "You think I'm going to become one of them? I'd rather die." The cabin quaked again, and the lantern flickered out. She felt her heart stall, plunging her into darkness. The thick, suffocating silence was shattered by the splintering of wood. They were breaking in. Tom's grip was on her wrist now, his fingers digging into her flesh. "Listen to me. You don't know the truth. We have to unite. We have to fight." But fight what? What were they truly fighting against? Shadows? The horror that dwelled within their minds? With a surge of desperate instinct, she pulled away from his grasp and dashed toward the back of the cabin, the knife trembling in her grip. The air buzzed with energy, saturated with an unnameable threat. Behind her, she could hear Tom pleading, screaming, but the chaos outside was growing louder, more insistent. Bursting through a door at the rear, she stumbled into a small hallway. Clutching the knife tightly, she pressed her back against the wall, willing herself to breathe. She needed to think, to see. She could not succumb to fear. They were closing in, but she refused to fight him like this. Yet as echoes of dark laughter crept through the cracks, she faced another choice, that undeniable call of the dark, enticing her with promises of power, of belonging. The knife felt heavy in her hand, yearning for blood. Footsteps approached the hallway, and the menacing voices grew louder. They were searching for her. "Sarah." Tom's voice was distant but clear. "You have to decide. Now." A noise erupted from the front of the cabin, furious and wild. Something unholy crashed inside. With one final breath, she moved. She would either carve her path through the darkness or be swallowed whole. What lurked in this maze of shadows? What truth waited to unravel if she dared to confront it? As the door behind her banged open, Sarah took her first step into the abyss. The hallway was narrow, claustrophobic. Sarah felt its walls closing in on her, the darkness pressing against her mind, whispering haunting promises. With every step, the air thickened, laden with dread. The shadows danced along the walls, flickering like cursed flames. Distant voices swirled around her, a cacophony of desperation and madness. They were searching for her, the others. The faces she'd seen twisted by inhuman frenzy now haunted her. Were they even human anymore? "I want to join you," she hissed into the void, channeling what little confidence she had left. The floor creaked ominously, and suddenly, the sound of shuffling feet snapped her attention. She dashed toward a set of stairs descending into deeper dark, her heart racing like a wild animal trapped in a snare. "Sarah!" Tom's voice echoed behind her, but she buried his name beneath her fear. She couldn't trust him, not anymore. With a flicker of resolve, she plunged down the stairs, clutching the knife, its blade glinting faintly. She reached the bottom and stumbled into another room. It was a cellar. Cold stone surrounded her, its dank air clinging to her skin. Shadows settled in the corners like lurking beasts. She moved cautiously. In the darkness, the echoes of her breath sounded loud and panicked. She was acutely aware of everything, the blood pounding in her ears, the shivers racing down her spine, the memory of long limbs and pale, hungry faces. Then she noticed a shape in the corner. A figure, hunched and trembling. Instinctively, she raised the knife, ready to strike. The figure shifted, revealing a gaunt face twisted by despair. It was a woman, eyes wide with primal fear, her mouth moving as if to speak but no sound emerged. "What do you want from me?" Sarah breathed, backing away. "Join us," the woman rasped in a voice that grated like stone on stone. "You don't have to fight." The whispers of the shadows drifted in like poison. They promised her secrets, power, freedom from this terrifying game. "What are they? What is this place?" "No!" Sarah shouted, shaking her head frantically. "I will not succumb." As if triggered by her defiance, the shadows surged, pouring out from the corners like a tidal wave of pure malevolence. They whispered her name, soft and seductive, their voices curling around her, like fingers caressing her throat. "Sarah," they teased, their echoes stretching into 1,000 sinister sentences. "You want to be free, don't you?" She felt an overwhelming urge to scream, to run, but the pull was stronger still. A memory flickered, a family member lost, a friend abandoned. Yet even in her deepest despair, she wouldn't let herself fall. The woman lunged at her. Sarah barely sidestepped in time, the knife swinging wildly. It cut through the thick air but only severed the fabric of darkness momentarily. The woman's eyes flashed, revealing unfathomable depths of longing and despair. "They will take you if you resist." The woman screamed. "Join us." In that instant, the walls of the cellar began to vibrate. The ground beneath her shook violently as the chant outside rose to a crescendo, drowning out her thoughts. The roof above creaked, threatening to collapse. Sarah tightened her grip on the knife, her heart beat a deafening drum in her ears. She wasn't ready to die in this wretched place. With a burst of adrenaline, she bolted past the woman, shoving her aside. But as she did, she felt the insidious pull of the shadows wrapping around her ankles, dragging her down into the abyss. "Fight!" A voice from somewhere, maybe Tom's, pierced through the cacophony. "You must fight back." With fury fueling her, she slashed at the darkness with the knife, feeling the cold grip falter. She wouldn't surrender. She wouldn't let them take her. As she burst from the cellar, the world collided with her senses. The murky shadows of the cabin shifted, swirling into a maelstrom of chaos. The figures were everywhere, their inhuman faces alight with hunger. Behind her, the woman's scream of frustration echoed, swallowed up by the darkness. "What now?" she gasped, feeling the walls closing in again. But something in her ignited. Over the howls and screams, a distant thought sliced through her fear. "If I don't know the truth, how can I fight?" The thought hung in the air, heavy with menace. And as the shadows surged again, she knew she had to confront whatever horrors awaited her in the heart of this nightmare. What truth lies within the dark that calls to her now? How deep does the darkness run? As she took her first step into the storm, Sarah prepared to uncover the terrifying secrets hidden in the shadows. The cabin's walls twisted with shadows, vibrating as if alive. Sarah steadied her grip on the knife, breathing in frantic gasps. The air was thick with anxiety and desperation, crammed with whispers clamoring for her attention. "Decide, Sarah." Tom's voice echoed in the distance, growing fainter. "You need to choose now." The shadows surged forward, hungry for her. They beckoned sweetly, the chilling promise of knowledge and power swimming enticingly in her mind. So many had been lost to them. She would not be another victim. "Enough!" she shouted, the madness pushing her resolve to the surface. Clutching the knife to her chest, she took one determined step deeper into the cabin, where the shadows twirled like a dark ballet. A sudden jolt of energy coursed through her. The lantern flickered back on, saturating the space with a ghostly light that illuminated the faces of the others, maskless, wide-eyed, and pleading. They crowded near the edges, each face carrying distinct stories of despair and hope hung in agonizing balance. "Join us," the gaunt woman had said, but Sarah would not be a pawn in their game. She had to unveil the truth behind Maplewood's sinister mask. What happened to the disappearances? Why were people lured into the darkness, entranced by its call? "Tell me," she demanded, voice shaking yet fierce. The walls trembled with an ominous energy, shadows flaring and twisting with eager excitement. "What is this place?" At that moment, the masked figures around her began to murmur a disorienting chorus of secrets that clawed at her psyche. Maplewood is a place of choices, one that thrives on fear, feeding on the spirit of the lost. Their voices slid over her, like silk, yet each word felt like daggers. "Fear?" she breathed, an ember igniting in her chest. "Is that what holds this town together? Your desperation?" Laughter erupted from all corners, a wild sound that made her skin crawl. Tom's face appeared from the looming figure. "If you don't let go of your fear, it will consume you. This is the way Maplewood survives, Sarah. Do you not see? You can join us or continue running forever." She choked. "How long have you fed on terror? How long must this continue?" An idea sparked a chance to end this cycle. She pointed at the chanting figures. "You have the power to change this. You have to tell me how. Expose the truth and let me help you." In that moment, uncertainty flared in the group. It broke through their manic resolve, a flash of what could have been. The whispers of the others stilled, urging quiet realization. "We cannot turn back," the women of despair gasped, now mere shadows of their former selves. "They'll take us." But then Tom stepped forward, revealing tears in his eyes. "Maybe we can allow her to guide us." His voice trembled, a fragile thread of hope wrapped in sincerity. "Together," Sarah pleaded. "I know the way out of this. We can end it together." As the shadows gathered and coiled, waiting to pounce on the moment, she raised her knife once more, but this time, it was not a weapon. Instead, it became a symbol of her yearning for liberation. "Let me lead," she said, the fire of determination burning clear in her eyes. The power of choice hung heavy in the air, a collective heartbeat of possibility. Tom stepped closer. "We'll either fear the darkness, or we'll seize it and make it our own." The air shifted, the voices began to resonate with understanding. Their muted anger transformed into clarity. "Together!" they shouted as one, the masked horrors shrinking back, trembling in the light that cut through centuries of hidden malice. The bond of choice intertwined, lighting the path ahead. Sarah held her breath. "Now, we reclaim Maplewood," she yelled, and with that, they charged forward, the darkness caught off guard. A wave of raw emotion surged through her as they fought back against the shadows. The cabin groaned and shuddered as light pierced through the fabric of their fears, dispelling the darkness that had thrived for so long. And just like that, the chants fell silent, one by one. The shadows faded, their hold loosening, releasing those trapped beneath the weight of terror, the lost souls who had wandered too far. In that moment of unity, a collective sigh echoed, reverberating through the woods. The air felt lighter, the veil of horror gradually lifting from Maplewood's grasp. The community had a chance for new beginnings, a fresh start. Standing tall among her newfound companions, Sarah smiled through her tears. "We are more than fear, we are strength. We are also the truth." As the sun began to rise, illuminating the world anew, she looked around, ready to embrace the dawn, a resolve etched into her heart. This was it, this was where they would write their story. Together, they could redefine Maplewood. And continue running toward a future bathed in light. If you love this spine-chilling tale and want to keep the stories coming, you need to subscribe now. Hit that subscribe button immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories tailored just for you. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these thrilling narratives. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey and the fate of Maplewood. I can't wait to hear what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this electrifying conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us keep this community growing.